Welcome, welcome, Wise Chat. It's Wednesday, May 29th. This is producer Henry here saying thanks for joining us for Wisecrack Live. Mike will be with us in just a moment. Hang tight, like that stream. Nice to see so many recognizable names in the chat. Hi, Alan. Hi, Eddie. Hello, Audrey and Fun GPT. And Porkins is here. Oh, welcome. Thanks for catching us, Quinn. Hey there, Clayton. Hey there, Hector. Hey there, Old Grease. Actually, Alan, I did notice that as well. I may bring it up in conversation. We'll see how things go. But do bring it up when we get there. John and Julio, what's up? And Semi Brad? Hoping so, Dappercut. Hoping so. Chris Maverick. Wow, we got so many people here in the chat. This is gonna be a good one. We got a nice weird topic. We got some fun quirks of current voyeuristic culture to go on. We got some comments. It's gonna be a fun one. The Mav. The Mav. The Mav. The. Whoa, we have Sasquatch in the chat. Meetings were canceled. So glad you could roam into our woods. Very excellent and adequately put to me, Brad. All right, everybody.
The first thing I will say today live is that, yeah, Julia, we got your email. So we'll hopefully get to that later. Last things first, we'll do our advice segment at the end of the show. So that means if you want any advice today, and advice from me and Henry, and or crowdsourced advice, if it's things that aren't really in our wheelhouse, then we have an email address. It's wisecracklive666 at gmail.com. It's wisecracklive666 at gmail.com. Hit us up. You have about an hour and a half till we get to there. One other announcement. I'll post a link in the chat right now. Just a reminder, you can check us out over on Spotify. It's the way you can now listen to all of our stuff along with watching it. And Porgans, if you're all the way dead, you're really alive, because as Hegel says in The Science of Logic, when we contemplate pure being, we arrive at the thought of nothingness. And when we focus on the thought of nothingness, we arrive at the thought of pure being. Thus, the primary conceptual structure of thought is becoming, a transition between being and nothingness. And in that way, if we think, infinite death, we really come across the thought of infinite life, taking us to a cycle of life and death as a constant cycle of becoming and collapse. So there you go. But I'm sure that's where you wanted me to go there. John has asked why I love Bill Walton so much. So shout out sounds like a weird way to put it. Rest in peace, Blasphemous. We know you'll be a father one day, so good luck. Bill Walton died over the weekend. Bill Walton's a cool guy. So Bill Walton, former NBA player, basketball announcer, legendary deadhead. But just to give some context, this is a guy who, in the relatively conservative, late 60s, early 70s, was star college basketball player at UCLA while he was a student at UCLA, while he was the star of their basketball team, got arrested for protesting the Vietnam War. It's very interesting to look back at the footage of Bill Walton, because he got arrested at the same site on the same quad that students have been getting arrested at UCLA in recent weeks. Bill Walton's someone who went into the NBA and, as a white player, starting off in Portland, playing in a white city, was very unabashed of speaking out against racial injustice, was openly critical of capitalism, the military-industrial complex. And of course, something I like about him, he was a huge deadhead. I actually saw Bill Walton at some Dead shows. And, just like a really, really cool guy. There's some fun clips of him, announcing basketball games where he starts criticizing, Liberty University for their anti-liberty Christo-fascism and stuff. He's just a cool guy. So, there you go. Callie just got ghosted for a postdoc interview. That's so weird. And I'll say this, if they're ghosting you for interviews like that, screw them. Screw them. What an unprofessional thing to do. So, we're here. We've had a good week. Had a mellow week. Nothing weird or bad has happened. Everything is good. And we come to you with an energy of full positivity. We're channeling Bill Walton today.
Yeah.
Please like the stream if you haven't. Go ahead, Henry.
Zach, I see in the comments, and welcome back, man. All's forgiven.
Yeah. We're here in a spirit of forgiveness, of wonder, of enchantment, of enlightenment, of positivity. So let's do it. Obviously, nice Sam Porkins post dick move. I like that. Like the stream if you haven't. It helps us out a lot. If you want to, feel free to share the stream. Today's main topic, we'll get to in a little bit, is going to be pro-natalism. Now, there's this couple, the Collinses. I hate that they're the Collinses, because I am related to some Collinses, and they're good people. And these people, I'm not sure if they're so good, but they had a feature on them in The Guardian over the weekend. Went a little bit viral. because they hit their kids in the thing. I don't know if anyone else is a big fan of Connor O'Malley the way that I am. I'm tempted to make us watch The Irish Mob, but
Bring
I don't know
back
if that'll
dudes
make
that hit their
people.
kids.
Yes. Whoa, when you Google Irish Mob, O'Malley's video isn't the first thing that comes up. I won't make everyone watch it. I'll post it in the chat. You can check this out
I don't know
later.
if I mentioned it in any What Aries at the time, but like 2-3 weeks ago, he dropped a full special on YouTube that is very worth
It's
checking
amazing.
out.
Yeah, here, you know what? I'll link to that as well while I'm at it. Why not? Speaking of Connor O'Malley's stand-up special and one of Connor O'Malley's colleagues, I don't often like to be the sort of person who's like, "Oh, I saw a famous person. I da 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 da," you know? But I saw one of my comedic heroes in real life. We were eating dinner at the same restaurant on Friday, and I just got to say it was a really exciting moment. I saw Joe Pera in real life. I don't know if any of you watch Joe Pera. Are you a Joe Pera person, Henry?
Not really.
All right, check him out at some point. I think you would like Joe Pera. Joe Pera Talks with You is his Adult Swim show. A niche interest, but I think one of the funniest people ever. But yeah, I bring up Connor O'Malley because in his Irish Mob video, a character, this is a week I've been thinking a lot about Connor O'Malley. I'll leave it at that. I just have been thinking about Connor O'Malley sketches a lot this week and been thinking about the sort of characters that Connor O'Malley embodies. Someone said Mike is quiet. I'll lean in a little bit more.
Is that Michael's or mine? Because I did
Yeah,
reduce
let us
mine a
know
little.
whose mic is quiet. Let us know. Look up Joe Pera, guys. You're on the internet. You know how to use it. You know how to use Alta Vista search engines and things of that nature. Joe Pera is a different guy. Connor O'Malley's one guy. Joe Pera is another guy. Love the guys. Love both of the guys.
Love me some dudes.
Someone else said, "Turn up Mike if you can." You don't have to, Okay, so we're going to talk about those people because they hit their kids in the thing. If you hit your kids, let us know in the chat. Don't do that. Dapper Cat, Joe Pera is an antidote for irony poisoning. I wrote an article when we had a Wisecrack medium where we were writing stuff. There's an article I wrote on Joe Pera that you can go check out. Maybe I could find it and see. I'll see if I can find it right now. Then we'll really get into it. YouTube watcher, yes, we have discussed the Connor O'Malley special. I shared a link for it a second ago. So everyone check that out if you haven't. Okay. I think this link will work. This is last link I'm going to share for a bit, friends. A little essay I wrote about Joe Pera over on the old Wisecrack Medium page. There was a period where we had some partnership with Medium where they had us write stuff for them. So, there's that thing there. There's that thing there you can check out if you want. Hey, glad that you're all here. Like the stream. Before we get into today's first topic, which will be pronatalism. And for anyone who's like, what does that mean? Pronatalism is the idea that it is morally good and imperative to reproduce and have a lot of the kids. That's how the Italians might say it. So that's what it means. There's also a position that we've talked about in a previous Wisecrack video called anti-natalism. Anti-natalism is the idea that it is potentially immoral or non-ethical to reproduce and have kids. Jello Shots gifted 5 memberships. I think we have a Lord of the Chat. If we're able to change our Lord of the Chat thing, I think Jello Shots' name needs to be there. Thank you so much for doing that. We love Lords of the Chat. We love Jello Shots. It's a nice thing to do. It's positive energy. I think today we really got to just lean into the positive vibes. I'll make it uncomfortable.
Dethroned.
Bye-bye. And, as we talk about this, before we get into comments, I'll make it dark for a second. I guess trigger warning of abuse or something. I didn't mean that facetiously. But yeah, I got hit a little bit as a kid. I was raised by my dad, especially very traditional, old school Irish guy. And I got hit a little bit. I wouldn't say like a ton, but a little bit. The last time I ever got hit was I got spanked for something, and my dad spanked me, and I started laughing hysterically, and it like shattered his masculinity. And I think he got really nervous that I was laughing at the spanking. In his head, he was like, "Oh no, maybe this means he's gay or something. I'm spanking his butt. Maybe that means he wants a guy to say, oh, I can't do that. I'll be a gay if I spank my son." But I just like laughed, and then he never did it again. But I was talking to someone about this recently because Connor O'Malley on Stavros's podcast talked about the stage of his life where him and his brothers, who were like, Irish kids in Chicago, tried to like fight their dad. And a friend brought that up. And I was like, oh, yeah, I remember the time my dad and I almost got in a fight. And my friend was horrified because it's a friend who comes from a more academic, cultured, liberal family. And then in his reaction, I was like, oh, yeah, that was like really weird that I almost got in a fist fight with my dad. That's not a normal or good thing. I say all this not to say that it's funny. I mean, sometimes we can laugh at dark stuff, but that's where I'm at with this stuff. So let's check out some comments from our video on wokeness or leftism. It's a video that came out Friday. If you haven't watched it, please go check it out. That I think there was a little bit of confusion on what we were talking about, and I get, it was a little convoluted because we're responding to a study that used wokeness as a category. We think the category of wokeness is silly. It's largely a weird right-wing appropriation of a term created largely in American Black culture to describe a very specific thing. But we were kind of using the language of the study. Apologies as well. A few people who made earnest comments on that video, I accidentally hid the comments because I thought they were being bad, and they weren't being bad. So if you left a comment on that video and it went away and you got mad, that is my fault. We were just being extra judicious on Friday because some people with bad vibes wanted to spread the bad vibes, and we were just trying to get out ahead of the bad vibes. But these are some comments from that video, because one thing I ask in it is, who is a sort of philosopher or someone you think could help make you happy? Because the premise of the video, of course, is that wokeness, and by wokeness we mean a certain awareness of reality, can potentially lead to negative thoughts as you are face to face with some of the gnarlier stuff in the world, who might make you feel good. So this first comment, is the Chumbawamba thing the first thing you got? Great. It says the philosopher that would be best at self-help is Mr. Chumbawamba. He said, I get knocked down, but I get up again. You are never going to keep me down. He also drinks a whiskey drink. He drinks a vodka drink. He drinks a lager drink. He drinks a cider drink. Don't do that in that order. But that's fun. Shout out to everyone who's old enough to remember that song. Shout out to everyone who doesn't know that Chumbawamba was legit like an anarchist art collective. And that song was kind of slightly jokey, but a group of artsy British anarchists had like a #1 pop song. So never say that you can't achieve great things in life. And shouts to anarchists, because you always get mad at us because we'll use the word anarchy in a video or a title, and you will say that's not what it means. And we're just exhibiting some anarchy. This next comment says, other people that were killed for challenging the status quo. Something we talk about in the video is how there is a history of people who are, I guess, more philosophical, more justice-oriented thinkers, or even thinkers like Galileo who challenge our fundamental thinking about how reality works. People like to kill them, punish them, put them in jail. Obviously, Socrates, things of that nature. Shout out to Socrates. I would just say, if you are at a point in your life where you're making Reddit posts about why Socrates was dumb, I don't know. Maybe you gotta look inside a little bit. You gotta look internally, because the unexamined life is not worth living, my friends. This comment says, other people killed for challenging status quo: Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Abraham Lincoln, a ton of whistleblowers. Shout to Boeing, Jesus, the Freedom Riders, Lucifer, Fred Hampton, Scholars of our Heart, etc. Like, from Lucifer to Fred Hampton was just a wild transition there. But yeah, they like to kill
someone in there is fictional, I would say to that.
Abraham Lincoln, not real. Someone do that. Someone start a new conspiracy theory about how Abraham Lincoln didn't exist. because that'd be fun. I was at a wedding once, where this is a real thing. At the rehearsal dinner for the wedding, there was an Abraham Lincoln impersonator at the thing, and I might seem like a really social guy to some of you because I sit in a room by myself and talking to a screen. That might make you think I'm a real social butterfly, but I absolutely hate large events where I have to talk to people. I hate talking to people that I don't know. It's not that I don't like them. I like to be nice to people, but I get really anxious and overwhelmed by it. That's why I was never in debate club. And for whatever reason, at this wedding rehearsal, the person I found most comforting to talk to was the Abraham Lincoln impersonator. So shouts to him. This next comment says, I really like this video, but there's an implication here that being woke or being a leftist translates directly to deep thinking, reflection, and engagement with philosophy. As someone who does consider myself more on the left, I disagree with his implications. Great comment. I appreciate that. I mean, here's the nuance that I guess we should have gone for there. What we talk about in that video. So there's a study, right? The Finns do the study. Shout out to Finland. The Finns do a study. Study shows that university students and professors, largely those in fields like social sciences and the humanities, have a higher propensity towards A, like social justice beliefs, and B, depression, anxiety, things of that nature. Now, the connection we made in the video is that the social sciences and the critical humanities, so subjects like psychology, anthropology, sociology, political theory, gender studies, philosophy, literary studies, a lot of these fields methodologically take a critical lens to dominant ideological and power structures, right? If you're in a sociology class, normally sociologists aren't just saying like, everything is good as it is. Everything's good. This is all great. We're going to talk about what is, but we're only going to do it under the assumption that everything's good. Anthropologists don't say whatever's happening in this particular culture, whatever happening culture right now is good and moral and there's nothing wrong. Obviously, philosophers, critical theorists, gender studies folks, race studies folks, they are not operating from a position where they're like, well, this system is in power, so we presume that that thing is good and natural. Let's go from there, right? There's a critical methods of those things. When we talk about the history of critical thought, we go back again to Greek philosophy. There's this emphasis on examination. What is examination? It's critically engaging with our own beliefs and the beliefs of structures outside of us. Now, because in the current era that we live in the West, the dominant power structures are largely right-wing. Now, you might say, Michael, in America, you have a Democratic president. Some other countries, we have like progressive leaders. Sure you do. But the West is primarily dominated by the logic of neoliberalism, which is a fundamentally conservative economic logic. It's one that puts a bigger precedent on the way things are, on economic systems, and on capital in general over individual people. So people from those fields are usually going to be taking a more critical lens towards systems of power. When systems of power are right-leaning or centrist, it'll lead to what we could call vaguely left-wing critiques. I do not think it is inherent to those fields of study that they end up with left-wing critiques. So totally fair point there. We do know anecdotally that most university professors, especially in the humanities and social sciences, are left-leaning. But I think when we say left-leaning, think about it this way, guys. Like, we're just saying critical of dominant systems of power and ideology. Like it's more of a critical stance than anything else. And I would hope if there was some, I don't know, like hardcore communist society or some weird anarcho-syndicalism thing, you would hope that scholars from those fields would still be critical of dominant systems of power. And you do have a lot of philosophers historically who have been just as critical during eras where there was, a more left-leaning thing. But that's a really good comment. I really appreciate that. And again, one of those videos where if I could do it all over again, I would be a little bit more careful about that framing. Okay, final comment. I said something last week that upset a lot of people. I said a few things, I said one thing in particular that led to a big fallout last week, a lot of comments on the channel, some attacks at myself, and I guess I'll address that now. The thing I said was that it's bad at restaurants to eat the free chips and salsa and the free bread. My logic at the time that I said that was, and I'm curious in the chat, let me know what you think about this. My logic was, if you fill up on the free bread, you are wasting your appetite for the surely more delicious meal that is on its way, right? We normally go to a restaurant because we're eating some type of food that we cannot prepare or, have at home. So my mindset is the bread is a trap. The chips and salsa are a trap. These are easy to make, cheap things that just fill us up. Now, almost nobody agrees with me. Universally, the comments say that I was wrong. And the common thread that people have is you eat the chips and salsa, you eat the bread, you eat the complimentary starter so that you have leftovers of your main meal. And I think those people are viewing things from a very functional and economic perspective. I still don't know if I buy it, but I see the logic. Henry, what is your take on this? The most controversial thing that I've said in recent memory.
Sometimes bread is tasty. I can see it as a trap. But chips and salsa, come on, like that's why not? At least the salsa. You ever put the salsa on anything else that comes to the table besides the chips? The salsa can be really good.
Yeah, I like table salsa because I use it on other stuff. Evan Lilly, I'll say, brings up an interesting point, which is Heidegger. I'm talking about Heidegger in the video we're filming today, Evan, and it's always weird talking about Heidegger because, Heidegger was a Nazi, and that's not good. I think what we could say about Heidegger, right, is that he was critical of the dominant system of metaphysics, right? Heidegger is not really a social or political philosopher, so he did take, and that's why people I think get really bummed about Heidegger because they see a thinker, and we're talking about a German philosopher, Martin Heidegger, early 20th century guy at the forefront of phenomenology. But Heidegger was able to see so clearly and so critically the problems of the philosophy that preceded his era. In particular, he was able to think about human freedom. He was able to think about the way in which anxiety and certain moods affect our freedom, and yet, rode with the Nazi Party. Clara brings up a point in the comments, and this is basically my thought. Audrey, thank you so much. Clara says, "There's literally no reason for them to give things away for free. What else would the restaurant?" Yes, that's the thing. I don't trust it. Why would you give me anything for free? Your entire job is to extract
So that you
value.
come back to build rapport. There's a little Greek cafe around the corner. They're always giving me free beignets and chicken soup. It's wonderful. I take everybody there.
Wow. Well, there you go. It's one of those takes I'm gonna have to just accept that I'm wrong about. So there you go. But those were comments. We read your comments. So whether it's on a stream or a Wisecrack video, leave a comment. We read them. I respond to a lot of it. If you've ever commented on a Wisecrack video, just a quick reminder, a quick note, I am the one who responds to comments. So it's not a bot. We don't have interns, we don't have, it's just me. So there you go. Leave some comments. I want to look at one thing, and I think this maybe relates to some of the restaurant behavior stuff. And it's something that went, talk about a term that feels antiquated. The term that feels antiquated is viral, but something that went viral this week is something called the phone method. And the phone method is something that people are using at Chipotle. I'll describe it, and we'll pull up the tweet. We'll watch a short video about this. But the method says that you film the Chipotle employees when they're making your food, and when the employee is watched by your camera, they do a better job. They fill up your bowl more. And this is the thing people are doing. You know, in the history of control and power, if you ever read like Michel Foucault, you know, Foucault wrote about the panopticon. Foucault wrote about prisons, control, things of that nature. And of course, something that Foucault is interested, and he talks about this in his book, Discipline and Punish, is that discipline is used as a mechanism of control in society. And that part of what we can do in terms of the operation of discipline is observation, the way we treat bodies. You know, he thinks that discipline created docile bodies. So disciplinary institutions help create bodies that will go along with the dominant logic of power or political or social logic. And I'm not trying to overthink this. I might be overthinking a little bit. But what I think we have going on with this Chipotle trick or the phone trick is a use of this Foucauldian, and by Foucauldian, his analysis, he didn't advocate for this, discipline in which we put a low-paid service worker under a lens of observation for the purpose of creating some docility so that their identity will wholly revolve around will wholly be a subservient worker fulfilling my desires, and I am using the power and threat of observation as a method of doing that because this person knows, you know, if you don't do what I want, I might put this on the internet or whatever it might be. So do you have the video pulled up, Henry? Let's do our super high tech. We'll press play on 1, 3, 2, 1. This guy looks like a cool, normal guy.
Perfect. Perfect. I like it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you, brother.
I like it. He's so slimy.
Yes. That's what I'm
Why would?
brother, can I have cheese?
And I like how he says, like, brother, like he's being like cool. Why do you need that much food?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's disgusting.
So gas. How many calories I'm eating? Huh? That's pretty big, huh?
So it's so gas. That is so gas, brother. I guess that's a term people use. I don't know about you, Henry. That strikes me as real bad. Like a real bad thing. I think
Yeah, it's so specifically directed at the worker and worker punishment. When I don't know, you can use this method to actually like critique corporate in some way. It's the misdirection of frustration and taking it out on the service worker and just reifying the service worker's meat shield for their bosses. Also, just I don't know. I'm also very annoyed by the way Chipotle wraps their burritos compared to literally anywhere else you can get a fucking burrito where they know how to do it. And I'm surprised that that's never been something people complain about, but you know, they just go for the bowls anyways.
Dapper Cat said, this isn't a life hack. This is using the mechanics of capitalist coercion to be selfish. Peter Fager noted, this video is pointless. We don't have evidence of what it looked like without them videoing the store. For sure, right? To do this properly, you would have to go on the same day with the same employees working at the same time and have one person film and one person not film. But yeah, Chris Maverick brings up the performative masculinity of look how tough I am. I can eat this much food. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so dumb, guys. Like, it's not like cool that you can eat more food. Even hot dog legend Kobayashi is retiring from competitive eating because he said he no longer has an appetite or a joy in eating. Dog formerly known as a cat. Good to see you. Maybe one day it'll be gerbil, formerly known as a dog that was formerly known as a cat. He'll add a new animal every 6 months and just keep going. Beatmaster said, why is this directed at the workers? Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I don't like that. I might, and cancel me for this, friends. I might get lunch at Chipotle today, and I'll tell you why. Because from where our office is, it's the nearest option that for $10 or less, I can get a vegan meal for lunch. Yeah, Alley Cattails brings up secret shoppers and things of that nature. Jesse says, big man need big food. Big man does need big food. I'm just little man, so little man needs little food. But, for all of those who are part-time vegans, it's easy to do. Dapper Cat, I'm going to read this comment. We'll keep it moving. Gonna let my freak flag up. Guys, let's hear it. In honor of Bill Walton, today, if there's any day to let your freak flag fly, it's today. I semi-jokingly advocate for retail conscription at 18. People need context on why they can't act like this. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that everyone... Oh, so Beatmaster. The reason I ask it, the reason I say it's a critique against workers and not corporate culture is in that moment, the person who I think is being dehumanized is the individual worker. I don't see how doing that is a criticism of the corporate structure of Chipotle or the way we eat in general. Claire, I'm part vegan. I'm a half-time vegan. But that's why I think the individual act, as far as I see it, is sort of against the worker. But I'm happy to be wrong on that, Beatmaster. I often am wrong. And, when I'm wrong, I'm just like, that's cool. I can be wrong. Not a big deal. It's okay to be wrong. Someone said, seems wild to live in California and eat Chipotle. Dr. Clownicus, I get what you're saying, but here's my take on that. I don't go to Chipotle when I want a good burrito. I go to Chipotle when I want a bowl of brown rice, black beans, avocado, and some veggies. I don't even think of it as Mexican food. I think of it, Sean Harriman, yes, R.I.P. to Walden. I would never look you in the eyes. I mean, first of all, their tacos are garbage. And their burritos, I mean, they can be fine, but totally, if I'm trying to eat good Mexican food, I'm not going to Chipotle. The problem is that Chipotle is not Mexican food. It is an American fast casual chain that utilizes elements of stereotypically Mexican cuisine to make a thing. It's a category error there. Okay, guys, it's about 10:39 West Coast. A little behind schedule. Sorry for that, friends. But it's Wisecrack Live and we're doing it. So if you haven't already, please like the stream. A reminder again that if you want to get involved in the advice segment at the end of the show, you can email us at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Again, that is wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Everyone got it? And of course, as always, we have a Patreon. Shouts to all our patrons. We went over 1,000 in Patreon. We're going to do some stuff to celebrate, so don't worry, patrons. You're going to get yours. But that was really exciting. I really appreciate all of you. Know that that's just an exciting thing. So shouts to all the patrons. It's really cool that we're in the thousands. Hopefully we can keep growing. And, the reason I keep pushing on that is because if you have the means, it helps us a lot and will help us grow less dependent on ads. Guys, we have one more ad left for the bad company that you all hate. I'm not going to say the name. We have one ad left for the bad company that you all hate. So let's get through it together. I will try to read that ad with soullessness in my heart, or just a full lack of pathos. Soon, hopefully next week, we're also, I think, going to be rolling out a sponsor on Wisecrack Live, our first official Wisecrack Live sponsor. And I'll just say this, it is a thing that I reached out to because I like this thing. You guys like this thing. It's a very high quality version of that thing. And of course, we'll get a code so that we can all get that thing at a discount because it's a Wisecrack Live thing. So that's on the way and I'm pretty excited about it. So be ready for that. as well. But thanks as always, and it is Raytheon and Boeing. It's of course it's weapons manufacturing. Okay, so there you go. But I'm gonna do a hard reset. My brain just died for a second, but here we go. Okay, guys, so it's Wisecrack Live, Wednesday, May 29th. I'm Michael Burns. I'm here with producer Henry. Thanks to everyone who's here hanging out with us. Today's main story is the Guardian article about America's premier pro-natalist who are having tons of kids to save the world. This article came out Saturday, the 25th of May. It was written by Jenny Kleeman. I mean, it's kind of funny that the people who are having all the kids and who think having kids are so important just have 3. I come from an Irish Catholic family, and 3 is nothing. But these people have been in the news before because they are part of the pro-natalist movement. Pro-natalism is the idea that there is a moral, political, I guess for some, an ecological imperative to reproduce as fast as we can, because if we don't have enough kids, something bad is going to happen. Now, we have talked about this before on our channel, so go back if you haven't seen it yet, and you can check out our video on the ethics of having babies. It was written by philosopher Tom Wyman, who's written a book on the topic. We love Tom. Check out Tom Wyman's work if you haven't. So let's check out this article. We'll read it. We will discuss it. We'll try to understand it some more. We'll maybe zoom out and talk about natalism, anti-natalism more generally. And a little trigger warning, this article does reference these people hitting their kids. I can't help but go into a sort of old school Chicago accent when I talk about hitting kids, and I apologize for that. It's probably a way to distance myself from the reality of the thing. So we'll start the article at the top. It says, the Collinses didn't tell me Simone was 8 months pregnant when we were making plans for me to spend Saturday with them at home in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. Anyone from PA, let us know what the vibe of Valley Forge is. But I guess it shouldn't have come as a surprise. They're the poster children of the pro-natalist movement, on a mission to save humanity by having as many babies as possible. And these people as well, the article, I think we'll get into this, they're also very big into tech. They're very big into AI. I would call them, generally Musk adjacent. And they do the thing that a lot of people who aren't cool but want to be cool do. You can see it in the pictures in the article. They wear like big glasses. A lot of people that are vaguely fascist wear big glasses as a way to say, you know what I mean? It's like the aesthetics of something else. Like, I'm cool. I have big glasses. But then it's like, oh no, you're like a fascist. There was what's her name? There's like a Fox News anchor. I think her name is S.E. Cupp, who wore like cool big hipster glasses.
Yeah.
And on TV and be like, oh, she's probably cool. Not cool, just big glasses.
It's the shortcut to like symbolic intellectualism or like, surface level. I have glasses. I'm smart.
Yeah. I will just say, if you're, for those of us with us live, Ann Porkins is going off in the chat today, as they are wont to do. So again, and then, shout out to those of you that wear big glasses and are cool. So it says Malcolm, 37, answers the door of their 18th century farmhouse with 4-year-old, get ready for these names, friends, Octavian George, who's thrilled to have a visitor, bringing toy after toy to show me like an overexcited golden retriever. His little brother, 2-year-old Torsten Savage, is on his iPad somewhere upstairs. Simone, 36, in an apron that strains across her belly, has her daughter, get ready for this name, 16-month-old Titan Invictus. They named their daughter Titan Invictus. I had a daughter recently. We worked on names for a while. We had a long list. Titan or Invictus were not on that list. Now, I'm not saying... Oh, go ahead.
I saw Furiosa last week, so I'm just thinking my son Scrotus and Erectus.
God. It says the imminent arrival of their 4th child, the girl they... Guys, I only skim this. Sometimes when we do an article, I like to only skim it so that my reactions are organic. That we're all seeing this for the first time, or some of us are. Take a deep breath breath before this one. The imminent arrival of their fourth child, a girl they plan to name Industry Americus Collins. Industry? You name your daughter Industry? Middle name Americus?
Is
What
that
are we doing?
like some kind of like jab at like Latin, like the future of America, the industrial like backbone workhorse of the future of the country? Like what weird like jab at like implied destiny are they going for there?
It's like an AI Ayn Rand got into Duolingo and named a baby. But it says, turns out to be the first in a string of surprises that I'll encounter during my day with the pronatalist. We begin talking to Malcolm's office, which is also the kid's bedroom, with a desk and a stack of bunk beds, 3 stories high from floor to ceiling. That sounds like barracks. Children use the room at night. I use it during the day. Malcolm shrugs. Why have 2 separate rooms? Simone and Malcolm work together in separate rooms, as what Simone describes as CEOs and nonprofit entrepreneurs. If I ever met someone at a party and I was like, what do you do? I wouldn't ask, what do you do? I think it's a bad question to ask. And they said, I'm a nonprofit entrepreneur. I would say, oh, I think someone called my name. I'm desired back at the buffet table. It says they acquire businesses with investor money that they improve and eventually sell or turn into a cash cow, as she puts it, plowing their earnings into their charitable foundation, which encourages people to reproduce. They plan on having a minimum of 7 children. They have a whole foundation that just tells people to raw dog, basically. You could say it's a sort of raw dome foundation or things of that nature. It says, this is not quiverful. The fundamentalist Christian belief that large families are a blessing from God. The Collinses are atheist. They believe in science and data, studies and research. I like the idea that if one is an atheist, and this is often said, I'm an atheist, I believe in science and data, studies and research. I just don't think that's a very great way to look at life. You know what? I would honestly I'd rather hang out with someone who is a grounded religious person than someone who had this hyper belief in science and data, studies and research. I don't think scientists want you to believe in their work. If there's scientists here, let us know. I think scientists probably want us to think about their work critically. I think they want their work to show us, different perspectives on the physical and natural world. And hopefully that understanding can lead to good things. But I don't know. It says their pronatalism is born from the hyper-rational, let's go, effective altruism movement. Okay, we've talked about this a lot before. I'm sure a lot of you know what my takes are on effective altruism. I think it's bad. Now you might say, you can't just say a thing is bad. Michael, give us a drawn out argument about this. Not going to do that. But I've made a video on this before. I think I made a couple videos on it. I've talked about it a lot. The long and short of effective altruism is it's the idea that the most ethical thing we could do with our life is spend our time doing activities that make the most amount of money so that we could use that money to fund organizations doing good things. Obviously, Sam Bankman-Fried was a big effective altruism head. A lot of very interesting upper-class whites are big effective altruism heads. Goes on to say, which uses utilitarian principles and cool-headed logic to determine what is best for life on Earth. I want a bunch of logic bros to sit in a room and tell us all what's best. It says this is a numbers game focused on producing the maximum number of heirs, not to inherit assets, but genes, outlook, and world. To inherit genes. Do you think we're going to... Let me know now, friends, if you haven't read this article yet, yes or no, are we going to do eugenics in this one? Yes or no in the chat, do you think we'll get to eugenics? If you're listening or watching this after the fact, just say it out loud right now. Yeah, it's being advocated by some of the most successful names in tech. The world's most famous pronatalist is father of 11, Elon Musk. Population collapse due to low birth rates is a much bigger risk to civilization than global warming, he warned in 2022. Is it? Is that true? is it true that population collapse is a bigger risk than global warming? OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. So everyone who's quoted in this as an expert is someone we've done a Wisecrack Live episode about, in which we largely talked about why they're maybe not smart. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has invested in several reproductive technology startups, one aiming to engineer human eggs out of stem cells, another screening embryos for health outcomes. It's also like these people have never watched a sci-fi film. Of course, I'm going to have a big family, Altman said. I think having a lot of kids is great. The Skype co-founder and Estonian billionaire Jean Talon, father of 5, donated just under $500,000 to the college's Pronatalist Foundation in 2022. I mean, a few things here. I would have a bazillion kids if I had a bazillion dollars too. But for most of us, we have to ask questions like, can I afford another kid? For those of us in America, we have to think to ourselves, and I know this is true in a lot of other countries, can I get the time off work to have a kid? What will the healthcare costs be? Do I live in an area where I can afford to rent a place with another room for the kid? What are we going to do about daycare and childcare? In many places, we're talking between $1,000 and $1,500 a month just for that. All these things add up. You know, it's one of those things where these people who will talk about data, science, biology research are wildly immaterialist because their analysis often lacks the material causes behind some of the things they're diagnosing as problems. You know, we can't all just have a bazillion kids because we feel like it. If you feel like it in the chat too, letting us know how many kids you have, let us know. We'll say who has the most kids. I just have a kid. The data pronatalist fear points to a looming crisis. As societies become more prosperous, people are having fewer children. After 200 years of overwhelming population growth, birth rates are plummeting. 2.1 babies need to be born per woman for population to remain stable. Imagine that 0.1. He's just a little guy. In England and Wales, the birth rate's 1.49, US 1.6, China 1.2. South Korea, it's 0.72, 0.55 in the capital of Seoul, yada, yada. So skipping ahead, it says there are going to be countries of old people starving to death, Malcolm says, as Octavian climbs the bunk bed ladder. The average Catholic majority country in Europe has a 1.3 fertility rate. You see this in some Latin American countries. It's basically halving the population every generation. He sees South Korea as a vision of our near future. I don't know, South Korea seems pretty chill. The only places where the birth rate is not falling to unsustainable levels are countries where the average citizen earns less than $5,000 a year. This is pretty wild. You know, oh, here we go. Okay. Here we go. It's about to get good. If up until this point you thought to yourself, like, I don't know, they're using the data, maybe they have a point. The only way countries like ours can survive is through immigration from those very poor countries where birth rates continue to be high. You're outsourcing the labor of child rearing to a separate group and importing people from Africa to support a mostly non-working white population because you didn't put in labor to support non-working white people has really horrible optics. Yeah, the optics are the issue with that one. Just the optics.
It's gonna be real hard to name imperialism something different this time.
Yeah, you know what I hated about slavery? The optics. That was the worst part about it. Hell yeah, we got some people with kids here. Shout out all of you. Shout out all our great parents. I know that if you're here, you're a good parent. I just know it. But yes, there's a sense with a lot of this of, you know. I mean, I'll say this now. I haven't read the whole article. What this smells like a little bit is the whites need to have more babies. That's what it smells like. That's where we're going.
Catholic Europe needs its young.
Yeah. You know, it smells like that's where this is headed. So since setting up the Pronatalist Foundation, Simone and Malcolm have become the movement spokespeople. We don't mind being human clickbait. That's kind of our job, so long as we get the message out before things get too bad. They are being taken increasingly seriously. I was thinking about this on my car ride in today. Are we maybe taking all the wrong people seriously? Like, think about people that are taken seriously. And one has to think about, digital media, the news media. Who do we take seriously in our society? And are these the right people to take seriously? I'm just asking a question. Together, they delivered a keynote speech at the first natal conference in Austin, Texas in December. I assume Henry was first in line for that one. Pronatalism is being accepted as a core conservative value. Babies are good, and a country that has children is a healthy country, Republican Senator J.D. Vance said in 2020 speech to a conservative think tank. I don't want to be political here, friends, but when you have a kid, one of the first things you notice is, holy shit, are they expensive? And two, you notice, holy shit, are there a lack of public resources to make this easier? So just from a structural perspective, if Republican Senator J.D. Vance thought that babies are good and that a country that has children is a healthy country, why not paid leave for mothers and parents? Why not guaranteed healthcare coverage for the prenatal process, the birthing process for the child? Why not universal pre-K and access to childcare? Why not? Why not is all I would say. It's not a political point. Friend of the show, Donald Trump, agrees. I want a baby boom, he declared, adding, "You men are so lucky out there." Jesus. Malcolm describes their politics as the new right. Historically speaking, whenever a party describes himself as the new right, it's always good, without fail. The iteration of conservative thought that Simone and I represent will come to dominate once Trump is gone. I also like when someone tells me they're going to dominate. What I'm saying, friends, is one day Invictus and Americus and industry are going to throw you in a gulag. The average pronatalist is young. Sorry. The average pronatalist is young, nerdy, contrarian, autist. I thought that was all of us. Are we all pronatalist guys? I didn't know we were. But, how many, if you're in the chat, how many of those words describe you? Young, nerdy, contrarian, autist. I guess I'm not young anymore. Usually they'll be running a tech company or be in venture capital. When did nerdy mean that you run a capital company? Remember when nerdy meant that you just had niche cultural interest that you took very seriously? Remember when being nerdy just meant you were interested in science fiction? When I was a kid, being a nerd didn't mean you ran a capital investment firm. That was financial jock behavior. There's a wider perception that pronatalists are also largely white. But Malcolm staunchly denies this. But he's aware that in promoting the idea that our culture faces existential crises unless we produce, the aims overlap with those of racist conspiracists who believe in the Great Replacement theory. Imagine having a theory and just being like, it happens to overlap with the Great Replacement theories. If you go to a friend's house and they make you a ragu sauce with pasta and they say the ingredients happen to overlap with 2-day-old warm shit, you don't want to eat it. Maybe you do. Well, you all would be so full on that goddamn bread, you wouldn't be able to eat the pasta or the shit sauce. It's not good. He insisted it's about pluralism. Humanity improves through cultural evolution. For that, you need cultural diversity. But in the numbers game, the Collinses need only a few people to join them to save humanity. Those who remain unconvinced will simply die out. I don't care if environmentalists don't want to have kids. The point of the movement is to help those who do. And they want to show you how you can raise a family according to rational, data-driven principles. Shout out to everyone raising their children with data-driven principles. The reporter says when she leaves their home, she'll be lost for words. There was a video that we were going to film this week that we're going to hold off on for a bit now, in which I was researching the idea or exploring the idea that often those who rely on rational, data-driven, objective principles are making some pretty serious, both philosophical, ontological, logical mistakes in their thinking. They can have some pretty dangerous and disastrous effects. But we can talk about it more later. If you're watching live, thank you for being here. Like the stream. Shouts to the Lord of the chat. If you want to gift some subs. It's a very fun thing that you could do. And if you're just tuning in, thanks for joining us. It's Wisecrack Live. Michael Burns, the producer, Henry, here as we always are. So let's get into their home now. Let's get into their home life. It says every decision the Collinses make is backed by data. Nominative determinism is a heavily studied field, Malcolm tells me. Girls that have gender-neutral names are more likely to have higher-paying careers and get STEM degrees. Oh no. I think I gave my daughter a non-general gender-neutral name, so she's not going to get a STEM degree. Names like Titan and Industry are much more than gender-neutral. I mean, you're going to...
Is culture going to remain static over the next 24 years so that when his daughter's entering the workforce, norms and mores are going to be the same as they are on this day when he's naming them?
So, I mean, I think that's what they're hoping for. Yeah. I mean, the thing too is, like, again, there's not... Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is one of my favorite books about kid stuff is a data-driven book written by an economist, but the point isn't to do eugenics. It's a lot of the data in some of the books I've read about child rearing, I think Matthew said this in the chat, kind of boil down to like, oh yeah, there's no absolute right way to do this stuff. Here's the stuff you should avoid. Here's some stuff that's probably good, but chill. So they live in a little home near a creek. When deciding where to live, they weighed metrics on a spreadsheet. Where's the passion in life like this, ranging from LGBTQ rights, which they support, to the density of Nobel laureates produced in a given area, to levels of homelessness, to major weather events. They bought this house and the one next door. They allow their neighbors to live in the second house rent-free in exchange for childcare? Ah, God, I don't know. Okay, so the reporter goes to their house. It's March. It's cold. And as effective altruists, they give everything they can spare to charity. In brackets, their charities. Their charities. Any pointless indulgence, like heating the house in the winter, we try to avoid. Does the data show that your children should live in a really cold house? Does the data just shows that? Let's see. She buys winter snowsuits online from Russia. Where'd she get those big glasses? She assures me she's not a trad wife, blah, blah, blah. If their definition of pointless indulgences extends to warming a home filled with small children, how come there's so many toys? Almost all the toys are gifts. They take me upstairs, as well as having separate offices. They sleep in different bedrooms. How are you going to have a billion kids when you don't even sleep in bedrooms? When, I don't want to be scientific here, but when the penis and vagina are 23 feet away from each other, you know, it's going to be harder to do it. Her office has a playpen, an exercise machine, stand-up desk, blah, blah, blah. Does she ever stop? I am autistic and I feel really uncomfortable standing still. She was diagnosed fairly recently after Octavian was diagnosed. I think that, like, this is maybe a spicy thing to say. A weird thing that we're doing now is that, like, everyone has to be pathologized and all the pathologies have to be like superpowers. I don't really like it. I wasn't ready for the next line, guys. There's an AR-15 assault rifle mounted on the wall of Simone's office. Was that a gift? She has a Beretta shotgun above the mantelpiece in her bedroom, plus bear spray and a bow and arrow. It's for home defense. They clearly live in a nice suburb. They did a bunch of research with data on where to live, but they need an AR-15 to live there. I have some thoughts.
And a bow and arrow.
Yeah. If anyone who's here listens to rap music, I was thinking about rap music this week, thinking about some situations, and like, I think a lot of people like this, people that act very tough and they have like guns and they're all thought of a couple, lyrics. You have Mobb Deep's "Shook Ones," famously says, you ain't a crook, son, you just shook one. And I was thinking about a Jay-Z lyric where Jay-Z says something like, the type, loud as a motorbike, but wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight. A lot of those types, right? I think that was from 99 Problems. A lot of those types, you know. And this is just the nature of the internet. I'm sure Greta Thunberg gets death threats all the time too. I'm sure Greta Thunberg doesn't have an AR in her bedroom. So, you know, goes on to say that, let's see. I'm going to skip ahead. It says the vast majority of right-leaning people in Silicon Valley are pro-natalist. You're probably looking at 100,000 people or something that subscribe to our specific vision. For a data-obsessed couple, the basis for this figure is notably woolly. He says it comes from the size of various communities and the number of views specific things get. If views tell us a lot about communities, then a lot of people want to bang their stepsister or stepmom. But that wasn't me being gross, guys. If you look it up every year, they put out the most like search for porn stuff and people search for stepmother and stepsister stuff. It's really weird and I don't get it. If that's your thing, we're not here to kink shame. It's not what we do. I just don't get it. You know, if I don't like it, I don't like it. That don't mean that I'm hating. But the movement doesn't need to be huge to be effective. Yada, yada. I think I'm going to skip ahead for a bit. There's a lot of crazy stuff here. Okay. Skipping to Simone suggests we go back to Malcolm's office. She brings in a huge basket of laundry. She folds the clothes. She has a 16-month-old strapped to her back. The reporter feels an urge to take Titan from her so she can sit down, and she bats her away and says, "Sitting down would drive me nuts." Malcolm says, "That's why I want to have kids with this lady." It's weird that yeah. And there's like a picture here, and they live in these like stacked bunk beds, like they're in steerage on a ship. Sorry, this phrasing. Simone was a mistake baby. Shout out to all the mistake babies. She was a child of hippies, blah, blah, blah. She didn't drink till she met Malcolm when she was 24. I'd only kissed one other person. You should have kissed more. She never wanted to get married. They met Malcolm as a part of a numbers game. Let's see. She wrote a keyword stuff dating profile on OkCupid, went on multiple dates a week. Data-driven dating is awesome. Malcolm had a troubled childhood, went to a private boarding school, money. He got his MBA at Stanford. They broke up, got back together. Malcolm proposed. He always wanted a large family. Multiple generations of his family had as many as 15 children. I said children's. I acknowledge that that wasn't grammatically correct. They had an agreement to have kids, yada, yada. She's about to have her fourth baby via cesarean. And let's see. The number one pronatalist policy, he tells me, is for governments to make it easier for women to work from home and have flexible hours. They believe in childcare, but not maternity leave? What? You want to have 1 billion kids, but you don't believe in maternity leave? Okay. Why do Americans, and why do certain Americans, and I talk about this a lot, why do they believe that they don't deserve things? You know? Like there's the Americans who will be like, I don't deserve to have my debt relieved. I don't deserve to have less working hours. I don't deserve to have more government benefits. I don't deserve to have maternity leave. Simone, if you're watching, baby girl, you do deserve it. You do. It's really hard to have a kid, you know? And I think you deserve some time off for yourself and for the kid. I think you deserve that. Simone, if you're watching, Simone, don't look away. Yeah, she will have the day off when she has a kid, but she'll take work calls the day after. What work? You run a nonprofit that you put all your own money into. And she's running for Pennsylvania state government as a Republican. The primary is 2 weeks after she's due to give birth. They say women's rights will suffer unless the birth rate improves. So women's rights will suffer unless we basically pressure women into having more kids. The only cultural groups that survive will be the ones that don't give women a choice. Oh. Wait, what? Women's rights will suffer unless the birth rate improves. The only cultural groups that survive will be the ones that don't give women a choice. And that's a terrifying world for us. Is he saying, I don't want to get in trouble. What do you guys think that means? What is he implying there? Henry, do you have a thought here?
So the only cultural groups that survive will be the ones that don't. Okay, so if you don't give a woman like the only way you can survive into the future is by being anti-choice is kind of,
But then is he saying the only cultural groups?
and that's a terrifying world for us.
But I'll just say what I'm thinking. And guys, if this is a wild take, but when he says the only cultural groups that survive will be the ones that don't give women a choice, that's a terrifying world for us. It sounds like he's saying that like brown people in other parts of the world will survive and like liberal whites won't.
Also, this reduces like the definition of like the role of a woman in society to just baby maker in general, and kind of like makes the second sex politically that it's not egalitarian is what I'm trying to get at basically.
Yeah. Because then it's like in China, they've already done this. Well, part of the implication there, I'm not trying to read this in bad faith, is like, we need to have babies because if not, the Chinese will have more. This makes you feel icky. They have a beef with anti-abortion. Their brand of pronatalism isn't about trapping people into having children or coercing. Their movement is if you want to have more kids, take away the stuff that makes it hard. I had thought the main thing, okay, here we go. I had thought, this is the writer speaking, the main thing that made it hard was that it is now so incredibly expensive to raise children. No, Malcolm says, not at all. That's, guys, parents in the chat. Parents in the chat. Is it expensive to have children? I think it is. And a dog, formerly known as a cat, I just want to go back. Gave us the fun fact that step porn has been rising in popularity with the increased in blended families. And let's see, this couple did a debate on YouTube if anyone's interested. There's a lot of great content with these people. I almost wish we had like more time today to check it all out. So Malcolm says it's not that. Cash handouts and subsidies haven't worked in South Korea. Yada, yada, yada. Within and between countries, the less money somebody has, the more kids they have. This is a very well-studied phenomenon. So guys, according to the data, if we just give people less money, they'll have more kids. When you look at high fertility rates in the US, they're not particularly wealthy. Like, this is the problem with treating data as magical math. Because you can look at data that shows some of this stuff, but if you don't have a proper societal, economic, and material understanding of the conditions that produce that data, you're acting as if it just popped up in a vacuum. I think this is what the author of the article is getting to. Surely that's because the wealthier you are, the more likely you are to be in control of your fertility, I say. One of the reasons why I chose to have only 2 children is because I couldn't afford to give more kids a good life. Bigger home, holidays, large car, and everything else they would need. A generous smile spreads across Malcolm's face. People say this to themselves, but speaking as someone who has a lot of wealthy friends, people just upgrade their lifestyles that earn more money. We want to have tons of kids, but as a result of that, we're not going to be able to send them to private school. We're not going to be able to pay for them to go to college. Colleges plan to homeschool all their children.
Do they not realize that's a luxury in itself?
Yeah. And they don't want them to participate in society. Like, how are you gonna make money when you have a school of
This
11
is
kids?
also so Hollywood movie like limitless brained, where they're like, oh yeah, we don't want our to raise our kids like they're retired millionaires. We're gonna teach them like bootstrappiness, and they're gonna be radical little Tony Starks who change everything. It's like, no, they're probably gonna inherit a broken society if it's not overhauled.
Yeah, I like this too. We don't raise them like retired millionaires, which is what many Americans do, driving them like private chauffeurs to soccer, to juggling robot class. If your parents took you to soccer practice, you are living like a retired millionaire.
Yeah, if you had a robotics class, you definitely had some privilege.
Yeah, like we're just not gonna do that. Reading this is making me more anti-natalist. So as a quick aside, anti-natalism is a position that in many ways involves the idea that having kids, and there's a lot of different anti-natalist perspectives. Some people will say things are so bad on the planet, it's unethical to force a being into existence that didn't ask to be born. Others will say there's just this moral problem in that when you have a kid, you're forcing consciousness on someone that did not consent to that thing. But if I was in the womb and someone was like, "Hey, before you come out, just know I'm never driving you to sports practice or comic book store," I'd be like, "I'd rather not." Um, when people say I can't afford kids, what they mean is I cannot afford to have kids at the standards that I find to be culturally normative. Nah, that's not it. Um, I guys, I can only speak to my individual experience. I don't want my kid to live like a retired millionaire, but I do want her to have like a nice life. And by nice life, I just mean like a comfortable place to live where we can turn on the heat in the winter or the air in the summer. Where I have enough money to where if she wants to take music classes or get involved in sports, we can afford that. Where, send her to a decent public school, take her on some trips every now and then, buy her some treats. I don't think those are millionaire things. The Collinses have had the Child Protective Services called on them before because our kids were wearing used clothes. That sounds weird that someone would get called for that. Because they were sick too frequently. This is when we had them in daycare. And because they were seen playing outside without us side in a locked and gated area. He throws his hands up. Nothing came of the visit, but it clearly rattled them. All high fertility families have had it happen to them. What the fuck? So they talk about some of Simone's issues. And, here we go. They've had the genomes of their frozen embryos tested. So guys, who said we were going to do eugenics? And are selecting which ones to implant according to how well they score on intelligence and future health. They don't just want a big family, they want an optimal one. Pre-implantation genetic screening is unregulated in the US. There's several companies that do this, including one backed by Sam Altman. Let's see. Genomic prediction data gave it to a team of scientists. The geneticist Adam Rutherford recently said there might be an IQ point or two of benefit in doing this, the type of thing you can change by having a decent night's sleep or a cup of coffee before doing an IQ test. Obviously, we looked at IQ, said Malcolm. We don't have to get into this now, but there's a lot of problems with IQ testing. It says, people do trait selection all the time when they prioritize certain kinds of spouses. I don't think that's fair. Did you, married friends, do you feel like you did trait selection when you got married? Kingsport calls says, my daughter's 20, I'm 42. You do the math. I raised her while working as a cook for 18 years. Also, my daughter won't have kids until she's in her 30s. But you know what, man? That's sick. You did the work. You raised your kid. And I don't know. You did the thing. And I think that's cool. And it's friggin' hard. It's friggin' hard, man. But you did it, and we appreciate it. And I'm glad that you, that you didn't give your daughter a weird life like these people. Let's see. So trait selection. And then the author asks, how is this different from eugenics? It's completely different, says Malcolm, delighted to be asked. Eugenics is state-sponsored selective breeding to influence the dominance of certain genes. What they're doing is polygenics, using technology to give parents a choice over which traits they value most. Different cultural groups will choose different things to optimize around. Eventually, that will lead to genuine human diversity. What the fuck? I don't know. I mean, maybe I should be more open-minded. Maybe I should read this and be like, maybe they have a point. I like that you can select for a decent future income. Let's see.
What is the genuine human diversity descriptor like?
Yeah. Okay, so they want to make this technology free so that we can all do polygenics. Malcolm wants to impress upon me that pronatalists care about ethnic diversity. This is their version of like, no, but we have black friends. East Asian and Muslim communities have seen their fertility rates plummet. Still, they're happy to share a platform. Here we go. Still, the Collinses are very happy to share a platform with white racists. Last year's pronatalist conference was organized by Kevin Dolan, who used to be much more on the ethno-nationalist side of things, Malcolm concedes.
Oh, he concedes.
This is my buddy Kevin. He used to be a little bit on the ethno-nationalist side of things, but he's a good guy. He's a good guy.
They were making the distinction of like Catholic Europe earlier as well. Like, come on now.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I can't. I get why people, and again, like I totally understand why people want their kids to be smart. I understand people wanting to, you know, do good things for their kids, but oh boy, I think that's the thing we can do too. It's like that. It's the old line, like you can judge the character of someone by the company they keep. I'm probably sure the person that said that was bad, but still, guys, you don't want to hang out with ethno-nationalists. You don't want to be at a conference with ethno-nationalists. You don't want to debate ethno-nationalists. You just don't want to hang out with them. It says proponents of the Great Replacement Theory attended, but they were outnumbered by the autistic, nerdy pronatalist. I feel like they're weaponizing words like autistic and nerdy to be like ethno-nationalism and eugenics is cool because we're just like autistic and nerdy about it. Like words have meanings. People are like, oh, go ahead.
It strikes me as like, no, we're the smart ones in the room here. Trust us. Like, you want us having our handle on the eugenics button because we're keeping all the stupid people away.
Let's see. Okay. People are like, why do you allow the racists to come to your events? I'm like, because we convert them. It's actually really easy when you show them the data. You guys ever hung out with a racist who just wanted to see the data? Are racists like, honestly, guys, I'm a man of science. I do think all of these people are inferior. They should all die. But if you show me data to the contrary, I'll change my mind. I'll just change my mind. Like, if anyone's a data-oriented racist, let us know. We'll have you on the show. We will not. But Jesus. Okay, so they need something to eat, and the dad will give them white rice and stick them with their iPads. Great parenting. In the car on the way to the restaurant, he tells me how much he doesn't like babies. Objectively, they're trying and they're aggravating and they're gross. So he hates babies. Large families mean short-term sacrifices. They have to buy a bus. Holidays will be impossible. Okay, they arrive at the restaurant. The boys don't want to be on their iPads. They're excited to be sitting at a banquet, a table at the plastic orchard. He tries to load YouTube videos. I assume they're just showing the kids Wisecrack videos. Kids, if you're watching this, good to see you. How useful has Elon Musk been to the movement? Fantastic! Malcolm replies. I mean, the most powerful, most wealthy person in the world advocating for your cause helps a lot. Oh boy, oh boy. Doesn't Elon Musk have a lot of kids? And I might be wrong, so I'm going to say this. I might be wrong. But doesn't he have like kids because he just like cheats on all his wives and like gets people pregnant and stuff? Like kind of like that. One of those sort of things. Something like that. I don't know. Here we go, guys. Here we go. So he's talking about Elon Musk, but Torsten has knocked the table with his foot and caused it to teeter. Immediately, Malcolm hits him in the face. A small child knocked a table with their foot. It didn't fall over. It toppled. And like a reflex, he hit him in the face. Again, truly trigger warning for those who've dealt with this sort of thing. What the fuck is maybe what I would say to this. The author says it was not a heavy blow, but is a slap with the palm of his hand directed to the 2-year-old's face. Firm enough for me to hear on my voice recorder when I play it back later. Guys, if you smack a kid hard enough that you can hear it on a voice recorder, you smacked him. Did this in a place. Torsten whimpers. In a restaurant, you gotta be nice, Malcolm says. I love you, but you gotta be nice. You're gonna get bopped if you do that. Jesus Christ, like, yeah, man, it's like, and then he, like, something about, so it says, Malcolm picks up where he left off. What Elon stands for, I wholly support. Our politics are very aligned. This is a little too on the nose. The guy's talking about how much he loves Elon Musk, stops to hit his kid, and then continues to talk about how much he loves Elon Musk. I mean, these people are Connor O'Malley characters. The author says the meal passes in a blur. Malcolm tells me how pronatalism and space travel are intricately linked, how his branch of effective altruism considers the suffering of humans today to be pretty irrelevant because of the suffering of billions of future humans could be eliminated, blah, blah, blah. The kids climb down. He tells them they're going to get bopped again. For someone dedicated to helping people have as much babies as possible, Malcolm doesn't seem to like children very much. I mean, this is sort of like, and we're almost done with the article, guys. It's kind of like this affectless thing. These people, data tells them it's good to have kids. So they have kids, but then they don't love the kids. That for me, that's very sad. You know, I feel like you shouldn't have a kid because data tells you to have a kid. Imagine if you were born, and a lot of us have had shitty parents, guys. It happens, but imagine like being born to a parent who you realize only had you because the data said they should.
Ooh.
That sucks, man. That really sucks. And I will say this too, like people hitting kids, bad. Like I said before, I got hit a bit as a kid, but I never would have gotten hit for like knocking into a table. If I ever, and like I'm not justifying this as bad, shouldn't I don't personally think it's good to hit kids. But you know, I would, like someone in the chat said, I might have back talked, might have been what John Chu in the chat would call spicy Mike. Wouldn't have got hit for knocking a table. So maybe you notice how appalled I was when he hit Torsten on the way back to the farmhouse. Malcolm tells me that he and Simone have developed a parenting style based on something she observed when she saw tigers in the wild. First of all, when did Simone see tigers in the wild? Where was Simone? Where there was Simone and there was wild tigers. I thought you can't afford trips. Where are there wild tigers in rural Pennsylvania? I didn't know they had those. Also, maybe you don't get parenting advice from tigers. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe don't go to the zoo with a notebook to write down parenting tips.
Don't we have whole like fields of study and books and data and facts and stuff about child rearing that you can read? You don't need to just like look at animals that aren't people and what?
I love
Just what
data
the
so
hell?
much. I love data so much that I hate developmental psychology and I just go to the zoo and I catch vibes. They react to bad behavior from their cubs with a paw. I was just giving you the context, so you don't think I'm abusive or something. Oh, cool. Thanks. I thought that you hit your kid, but now that you told me your wife watched a tiger hit its kid, totally fine. I get it. Thanks for providing the context. Thanks for the context. For the Collinses, humanity will survive if we all decide to be a little less precious about our children. If we're prepared to take a financial hit and change our lifestyles, you know what they never explain in this piece? And like, to be clear, I'm sure if we read something by the Collinses, they'll say more about this. But in reading this, I don't quite understand the stakes of the problem, right? I understand as a non-climate scientist, I understand, at least in a general way, the practical material stakes of climate change. I don't quite understand this. Maybe someone who's watching can explain it to us. But yeah, let's see. They're going to make adjustments. Unlike the Collinses, my thoughts aren't focused on the generations far into the future. I'm thinking only far as the next one and how Malcolm's children are going to feel about this project when they're old enough to realize what they are a part of. I think I know what their children are going to end up doing. I don't want to say it out loud, but it rhymes with, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to show some restraint. What does he think they'll make of it? What a failure I'd be if my kids hold my exact value system. My kids are going to be like me, but better. They would probably think that I was well-meaning, blah, blah, blah. Before I leave them, I ask someone the same question. If we are wrong, we want someone to be right. The more kids you have, the more likely you are to have kids that get it right somewhere. So just a numbers game, guys. If you have a bunch of kids...
Get it right? Like, it is just vibes-based wishing.
Yeah. Wow.
Get what right? Like, what are you going to impart on your kids is like them needing to do? What are you going to traumatize them with?
Yeah. Rhymes with mole booter. Shouldn't have said that, but I gave it to you guys. I gave it to you. Like Christ said, those with ears, listen. Wow. There's, I'm going to share something in the chat. If you're watching this after the fact, I'll try to remember to drop a link in the description here. But, there's a whole other take on this, of course, which is the case for anti-natalism. I'll maybe just skim this, Henry. I'm gonna pull it up. It's the one that's the in the Danish thing, Farsight Futures Reviewed. But the most famous anti-natalist is a philosopher named David Benatar. I'm pretty sure he's a South African philosopher. And let's see. I'm gonna find a point in this article. Let's see. So there's a point in the article, Henry, that's scroll down a little bit and it says, firstly, Benatar mentions. So I just want to give some, we considered the pro-natalist. Benatar has some interesting ideas as an anti-natalist. Clearly I'm someone I have a kid, so I'm not here to tell you either way. I think it's chill and normal to have a kid if you want to have a kid. It's chill and normal to not have a kid if you don't want to have a kid. Benatar mentions it's important for us to distinguish between bringing a life into existence and continuing to exist once a person is born. They have a vested interest. His argument does not concern such cases. Rather, it surrounds the potential beings that we deliberate on bringing into the world. Benatar explains that when you deliberate whether to create a being, you consider two scenarios, one in which the person comes to an existence and one in which they don't. I think that the harms the person would experience in the case of existence would be bad. If you choose to not bring them to existence, those absent harms will be good. I'm just going to be real with you guys. I don't find Benatar's logic convincing, but I find it more interesting than the Collins's. Says in an ordinary course of events, a potential being would also have some benefits or pleasures within their life that would be good. But if we fail to bring them into existence, the absence of those benefits is not bad. And the reason why it's not bad is because there is nobody being deprived of those pleasures. And not going to go into this whole thing, but more or less part of the anti-natalist Benatar position also kind of involves a lot of logical, I guess I would call it like logical projections, but basically thinks that because the non-existent potential life is more likely to experience, let's say, pain than pleasure, it's better to have not been born. I think that's the title of one of his books. Benatar does say that what he does isn't mutually exclusive from effective altruism, which is kind of interesting. He actually says it's a part of the same philosophy. So I think that that's very interesting that Benatar's anti-natalism, he sees that as a part of the effective altruism movement. He's also against anti-natalist policies like government stuff, like government saying you're not allowed to have a baby. But either way, something you could check out if you are interested in that sort of thing. There's a video that the Collins has put out, and I find it really icky too, that the thumbnail of their video says, "We went viral for child abuse." We all got to make thumbnails, guys. That sucks to kind of use the claim of child abuse against you as a way to have a pop-in video. I'm not above, playing the virality game, but I don't think we're going to watch that. It exists. You can find it. I don't want to say, one might say you should give them a chance to defend themselves, but I feel pretty good with not right now. And you can do that if you want. But yeah, so I don't know that there's anywhere to land on this other than it's another weird example of people associated or who self-associate with the logic of Silicon Valley, the logic of tech spaces, using logic, data, mathematics research as an excuse or as validation for social and ethical positions that are adjacent to, that overlap with, that are parallel to, the Great Replacement Theory, ethno-nationalism, white supremacy, things of that nature. We've talked about this a lot in a lot of different ways, whether it's looking at, God, I'm forgetting the guy's name now, the guy that wrote the Techno-Optimist Manifesto. We've talked about him before. Andreessen. You got Andreessen, you got Altman, you got Musk, you got a lot of people who are maybe more influential than they should be, Uh,
Yeah, what you're bringing to mind, it's something. So Chris Maverick in the comments was pointing out, in the chat was pointing out how they have their neighbors living with them, babysitting the kids, and so I'm thinking in the same way that like that could be seen as sharecropping or slave adjacent. It does remind me of the kind of the hegemonic ideology of like the Southern aristocracy during the Confederacy,
mhm,
because the whole reason you had slaves on the plantation was it freed up the white people for intellectual activities,
mhm.
coming up with art or poetry or new ways of practicing phrenology, that kind of a thing. And that's what we're seeing here now in the same way. They straight up admit to, like, yeah, we bought our neighbors. They watch the kids for us. We're kind of annoyed by our children. We smack them around.
Yeah. Real quick, Alan Malcolmson in the chat says, please read the one part of the response. Alan, can you send that over, or have you sent it over? I would love to read it. Jay Thompson in the chat said, "What happened to the philosophy of series?" Honestly, a lot of our videos still are, the philosophy of, just without that title. I've talked about this before. We don't do as much media analysis stuff right now, but we're hopefully launching a second feed this year where we're going to get back to talking about movies and TV and things of that nature. So there you go. Um, well, thanks for letting us go into that deep dive. If you're listening to this after the fact, we have more on this show. You can head over to YouTube and check that out. But now we're going to shift into advice time. I think some of our stuff that we had on the docket for today, we'll try to get into on Monday, because I really want to talk about some of it when I want to give it space. So, you can hit us up at wisecracklive666 gmail.com. There are some questions we didn't get to last week that I wanted to get into. We got some new questions coming through as well. In the meantime, let's see. Oh, so Alan said they make a claim that it's racial to call them abusers because black people hit their kids more. That's tough. That is tough.
Yikes.
That's tough. That's tough. Thank you for sharing that, Alan. Oh boy. Um, Eddie's in here. His dad who loves a kid, hard to watch. Kingsport of Call, 666, classy. We're a classy bunch. We are a classy bunch. So let's get to the first emails from Jamie. Jamie's reaching a point in their life where it feels like their current career path and path to fulfillment are pulling them in different directions. I'm 25, 3 years into my career, at a point where my career is ramping up and taking up more and more time as my responsibilities grow. At the same time, a buddy of mine founded a men's group that I've been finding myself enjoying my involvement with the group more and more. It's a group where men in need of space to speak without being judged come to discuss their experiences and to discuss a wide range of ideas with open-minded people. Sounds fun. For a bit more context, my education background is psychology, statistics, and political science. My current job is a data analyst role. I'm just like skipping a little bit. They enjoy their job, but they find themselves constantly wanting to spend more time engaging with my peers in a meaningful way, less time sitting behind their computer at home working on spreadsheets and PowerPoints. Not to sound too self-absorbed, but listen, I sit here and listen to my own voice for hours. You're not going to be the most self-absorbed guy in this room. But I really do feel like I have a relatively unique perspective to offer. I'd love to hear about your personal experiences where you felt like you came to a fork in the road regarding your career, how you addressed it, especially if you experienced the situation where the path you truly wanted to take was far less financially stable. Okay, good question. Thank you for reaching out, Jamie. I'll give a few thoughts, and of course, if Henry and anyone in the chats has thoughts, they will share them as well. It's a tough one, right? Because wouldn't we all love to spend most of our time discussing ideas with interesting and open-minded people and using those discussions and times exploring ideas to forge a career? That'd be awesome. I think it would be unfair and unreasonable to give advice that said, do that and hope that it works out. From a real practical level, I think sometimes some of us have passions and interests where you can find a job that lets you do that. For example, a good buddy of mine left, I guess, a more serious career that he hated to find a job where you had to be on boats near the water. Loves boats. He loves the ocean. He tried doing some scuba stuff for a while, didn't love that. But now he's gotten his captain's license. He works on boats. He like, captains tours and stuff. Probably makes less money than he used to, but it's a job where he really does get to be on the water and do boat stuff. For some of us, we might not be able to find jobs that correlate with our passions like that. So then, in my mind, the practical move is, what is a job you can get? And this kind of almost touches on the lazy girl's job thing, that would allow you to work as little as possible, doing something that's that drains you the least as possible and leaves time to do the other stuff. And then if there's a world where the other stuff takes off, then awesome. Maybe eventually you do find a way to use that. But I just think it's, in the world we live in, it's just too risky to totally tap out, And I wish I had better advice from my experience, but I was very naive. I went to grad school because I didn't know what else to do. I got some scholarships. I treated student loan money, so I don't want to say irresponsibly, but I just wasn't aware of the consequences of taking on a bunch of debt and what would happen. I went into academia thinking that it was not going to be hard to get a job. As some of our friends of the show know, academia is really tough. I, followed some passions. I am where I am now. But even now, and not that Jamie said this, but, there's elements of this that are very fun, which I get to embrace stuff I'm passionate about. But got to make videos that we think are going to hit and pop off or go viral. And we got to make thumbnails and titles that will work with the algorithm. There's all this stuff. All that shit sucks, Just want to talk about ideas and explore stuff with you guys, but we don't live in a world where that's as feasible. So that's my thought. Henry, you got anything to add?
My question is, how tangible is another job or position? Are you seeing over the fence right now, or is it more that the work itself is alienating? I just ask because I'm all for letting you, go for it, quit the job, find somewhere else. Definitely have a savings cushion built up. I have thrown away a customer service job to chase gigs, and 4 months later had to go back to customer service from ill planning, and then other times I'm curious more in the context of if you have a little bit saved up and you have some hooks or some opportunities, go for them. Otherwise, keep saving and keep. I don't know, this group you're in sounds pretty cool. Have you been talking with people there that may be looking for something? What kind of skills do you actually, want to practice or employ when you're working? If what you're doing right now is boring you.
Yeah. I'll give an example from the chat that I think is helpful here. Sean says, I'm secretly writing a business plan for a barbecue pop-up restaurant for the public market while I'm at my engineering job. And I think that's it, in a sense. I think what Sean's doing is you get a job, you try and make some money, you get some benefits, and then you try to utilize that to maybe set yourself up for another thing. So let's go. I want to get through a few of these. This one's from Callie or Kaylee. It says, thank you for all you do. Thank you. How can I convince myself to vote and not feel terrible about the upcoming election? As a progressive person, I know who I should be voting for. It feels like an especially bleak and hopeless election cycle. I wish we could express our dissent through withholding votes. Also, thank you for your response last week. Appreciate it. They also said, it can be hard to think about art for art's sake, since there is a context for everything. And by art, I should be making... Sorry, they talk about art. They say some very interesting stuff, and I really appreciate what they're saying. Voting, this is tough. And I think we'll talk about this a lot in the coming months. We are going to make a video for the main channel about voting, which I'm sure will not make anyone mad. I guess I got to stop saying the politics thing, because people are starting to get mad that I say I don't talk about politics. But my perspective on this one is weird. I live in an extremely, quote unquote, blue state, which means that if I want to, cannot vote for Joseph Biden, and it'll have no material effect, right? The votes in the Electoral College of California are going to go to Joseph Biden. But if someone lives in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, Florida, a lot of big states that are a lot more split politically, one can make the argument that there is a practical, ethical reason to vote for someone you don't love. I personally think that, here's what I will say. I do not think that anyone has a moral duty to vote for any particular person. I think it is the job of political parties and candidates to earn or win your vote, and you will never catch me shaming someone for not voting. You will also not catch me shaming someone for voting practically if that's what they see fit.
Yeah, do not feel shame if the candidate does not have the confidence to actually acquire your consent.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a tough one. I wish we could give you, sorry guys, a better answer. I think this is a topic we'll talk about a little bit more. Now this is an email that has an image. If I can copy it, I'll send this over to Henry, and maybe you can throw this on screen if he wants, but no pressure if that's a pain in the ass. I sent it over on a Telegram as well. I just want to not put the email thing on the screen and not show people's email addresses. Yeah, this is from the woke video, and if this comes up, not, but our friend A Hickey sent a comment that says, "Yeah, I'm sure you," and this is about like woke stuff. So I'm sure you think about that all day while you're eating your avocado toast and tweeting on your iPhone 15 while wearing your Doc Martens and complaining there's nothing to watch on the 20 streaming services you pay for as you puff your THC vape pen. You should be sure to clean your face off after blowing all over it. I cannot tell if that is performative irony or earnest. Well, it's funny. That wasn't advice, but it was just a funny thing someone sent. Question from Ann Porkins. Who's cuter, LeBron James or Steph Curry? For me, it's Steph Curry all day. Do you have a preference on this, Henry? Who's cuter, LeBron James or Steph Curry?
I don't have a confident call on that at all.
All right, let us know in the chat who you think is cuter. That's probably the most important question we'll get. Let's see. This is just an advice, but not an idea, not advice. But someone brought up responding to Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro on gender. Maybe, but right now I'm trying to keep my hands clean. Okay, question from our friend Julia. There's a lot of questions, so Julia, I'm gonna do 1 and 4 now, and we might come back to the other ones later. But first says, I feel I finally achieved the goals I set out for myself as a teen and a young adult. Job that pays well with benefits, that I feel passionate about and making a difference with, rent an apartment by myself downtown with my cat, everything I ever aimed for. Now that I've achieved these things, I feel kind of lost. Did you ever get a point in your career life where you achieved the things you sought to as a teen, young adult and feel lost after? It's kind of like, now what, For sure. Here's what I'll say. If you told me at a certain point in my life, even when I was in grad school, hey, Michael, when you're 39 years old, you are going to have a job that pays your bills and gives you health care, where you make YouTube videos and do streams, where you get to talk about philosophy stuff, but also bullshit about things going on in the world. You get to meet a lot of cool people from it. You get to participate in a cool community. You're going to live in like a chill little house. You're going to have a wife who's very cool and smart. You got a kid who's the best thing in the world. You're going to be bald as fuck, but these things happen. I'll be like, oh my God, that's everything. I have it all. But, I don't think anyone ever feels like they're there. Now, there's a quote I like from Soren Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard said, and this one gets used a lot, but he says, life is lived forward but understood backwards. And we often project ourselves out towards some kind of goal or project in life, but we don't really understand it until we look back. And sometimes when we look back, maybe we're not as happy as we thought we would be. Maybe we didn't quite predict things the right way. This is why, in a more conceptual way, Hegel says the owl of Minerva flies at dusk. I think that the external things, and this is one man's opinion, I think external things like jobs, apartments, even relationships sometimes have ceilings. And those things can only make you so happy. And we have to figure out whether it's hobbies or interest or working on ourselves. What are the things we can find that don't have low ceilings that we can pursue as well too? Because like, you know, if we find our happiness in a job, we get fired. If we find too much of our happiness and value in a relationship, they could leave us. Find happiness in where we live, you know, we can get kicked out, place burns down. You're not inside of it, don't worry. Which leads to a really hard question of how do we find a type of joy that we have slightly more control over. You know, even in Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, he talks about the dangers of finding happiness in pleasure and honor and money. And I've always found that critique very valuable. The reason this is a hard one to answer is because the things that might make Julia happy, or if not happy, even find some sense of purpose, might be totally different than Henry, and totally different from Sean, and different from Eddie, and different from our bud Porkins, you know? So I think that's why that one is hard. Henry, you have any thoughts?
No, I was tracking the chat. It was bringing to mind some stuff, just the general natalism thematics of the episode, and just determining what makes you happy. Something I've been finding myself going through is I like kids. I don't know if I'm going to have kids, but I do have a sense of paternalism I've been redirecting towards like creative and educative efforts in a way to like alleviate that want. And also it has led me to, you know, making friends and partaking in community groups. So think about what frustrations you might be able to redirect through other means.
Yeah, I forgot, Henry. We have a new thumbnail for the advice segment. Too late to put it up now.
Whoa.
Next week. Next week we'll do it. And then let's see. Julie has another question that's really good. I'm gonna save it for next week if that's okay. I'm marking it right now. Someone said they won't make any babies unless I tell them to in person. I might do that. Okay, so Gerbil, formerly known as a dog, formerly known as a cat, seeking advice. I have a friend that has gone down the sexist red pill rabbit hole. I've been friends with this guy since middle school. I do value him as a person, but I don't know if I want to keep the friendship because of his garbage views. Please help. This is real. I'm sure many of you have dealt with this. A couple thoughts here. Hypothetically, is someone who might have been on the receiving end from some of those folks recently. I think most people I've encountered who go down the sexist red pill manosphere rabbit hole are sad and insecure people. When I say sad, I don't mean that in a pejorative way. The people that are sad, they don't feel like they have a community. They don't feel like they have purpose. They don't feel like they have an explanation for why their life is the way it is. And, you know, I think that we can operate from a position of some level of empathy and speaking to that. And maybe if this is someone you're good friends with, trying to figure out the why, like what is motivating this, you know? Because then it's like, do you think like women are inferior? Like, do you think your mom's dumb? Do you think the women you work with are idiots? Do you think you're really smarter than all of them? You know, like maybe like ask some questions, and I don't know, maybe this person will be like, yeah, I fucking do think that. Maybe there's a world where asking some level of question gets to the point where it's like, well, no, I don't think that, but, and that's where you can often get somewhere, you know, and you don't get there through debating with them or yelling at them. If you're going to get somewhere, it's going to be through asking some sort of questions and offering some sort of understanding. And maybe if this is a person that's a solid person too, you can ask them like, well, how does, you know, what about other people? You know, if the issue is like, life is hard being a man because everyone wants to get you and da 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 da, it's like, okay, even if that's true, even if it's true, do you think that you have it harder than most people? Do you think there's people in the world that might have a little harder than you? Can we have some empathy for them? And maybe if we have empathy for those people, we realize that our struggles are more shared than not. I don't know. It's a real tough one. I do think there is a point though with someone who is in that space. You can only do so much. You know, you can only go so far. And at a certain point, as a friend and as someone who cares about them, you are allowed to tap out.
Yeah, how vulnerable are they willing to get, or are you willing to get with this person? Can you have a heart to heart? Because after a point, if a person's not like sincerely emotionally invested in what they're doing with you or considering what you're saying, like that's when it comes time to where like if they can't do it with friends, they're going to need professional therapy or help beyond what you can do as an individual.
Mhm. Yeah. Stuff. Please like the stream if you haven't yet. You know, we're still hanging for a little bit. It helps us whenever you do it. So there you go. But yeah, but that's stuff one and two. I'm sure people in the chat have dealt with these sort of folks. But yeah, but at a certain point, like at a certain point, you just got to tap out. And there is a level of toxicity in these communities that's really dark. And hypothetically, I've had some recent interactions with people from that adjacent to these communities, and there are angry people. People are really, really angry, and I do think whatever's going on with your friend, there's probably an anger at the root of it, and hopefully you can talk to them before that anger takes over, because because fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate, my friend, leads to the dark side. Okay, last. Let's see. Ooh, this is just a good advice from our buddy Eric. Said if we want a spicy topic, look into the communities of donor-conceived people, myself included. They're pretty unhappy with the commercial reproduction industry, how parents kept their children from knowing the truth, blah, blah, blah. I saw an Anti-Natalist talk on soft white underbelly that I did not expect to relate to so much. So yeah, guys, look into that if you want to keep thinking about some of the stuff we've gotten into today. A note, I'm going to mark some of that advice for later, some questions we didn't get to. We are going to get to those. So please do hit us up at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. And as always, you know all the stuff, guys. If you have the money and you feel up for it, check out our Patreon. It's a huge hate leads to suffering. God damn it. God damn it. Sorry, guys. I really swung for the fences there and I missed it. Don't join our Patreon because I misquoted Yoda, and no one who misquotes Yoda deserves to live. Hell yeah, NTRPK. Hell yes. So definitely don't do that. Thanks for hanging out today. And yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know if it gets in any solutions. I know the most recent Some More News video is about what's wrong with men and some of the manosphere stuff. So you can check that out. Who has more hair, Michael or Yoda? Total body hair, definitely me. Definitely me if we go total body hair. And I'm larger than Yoda, so there's more surface area. So, you got that going on. Yeah, today got a little intense and real. We'll stream again on Monday. We were off this past Monday because of Memorial Day. Hopefully everyone had a good Memorial Day that had the day
All I want
off.
for my birthday is for people to show up to stream.
Is your birthday on Monday?
Yeah, it's on June 3rd.
Should we not stream because it's your birthday?
No, I actually enjoy this quite a lot, especially Monday streams.
Okay.
It's an hour of the day.
Okay.
Like, of all the work I do, Michael, like being here on Wisecracks, it's some of the funnest.
Okay. Well, we all appreciate that. So guys, you're going to be here. You're going to be here on Monday. Henry birthday party. We got to go. We got to do it. We got to do it big. Got to do it big, guys. So lick the stream, sign all the things, do all the stuff, because that's really exciting. So we're going to do that on Monday. In the meantime, guys, if you aren't regularly checking the channel, Friday, we have the first video ever coming out that used green screen technology, and a wardrobe change from yours truly will be taking place.
What?
In the video that comes out on Friday. Guys, I'm going to be on a boat. I'm going to be on a goddamn boat in the video. So I need you to check that out. Set your alarms. As always, 10 a.m. on Friday. If you ever want to catch up on Wisecrack Live, know that the episodes are up on our page under live. We are now posting the main segment, not the whole episode, but the main segment on our Spotify page. So please go follow Spotify if you haven't already. And, shouts to all you guys. Thanks for all the likes. Thanks for the chat. It was really good today, guys. It was a really good chat we had today. We talked about some heavy stuff, and I like how we had a good time with it. We thought together, we grew together. You got anything else, Henry? You want to throw out today before we head out?
In Praise of the Shadows had a very good but very long essay on horror and conservative horror movies up on YouTube. That was a fun check out over the weekend. No, I'm good to go. Hope everybody has a good week.
Pretty good as well. Amp Organs predicted something about the next video, but I'm not going to tell him what. Okay, guys, we'll catch you soon. Thanks again. Follow us and all the stuff. Go on Patreon. Follow our Twitter. Watch our videos. Come find us in our houses. Rub our backs while we sleep. When we wake up, put on a mask and say, trick or treat. And do all that. We'll see you next time. It's been Wisecrack Live. Love you guys. Bye.
Don't do any phrenology over the weekend. Bye.
None.